The moment I walked into the courtroom, my ex-wife laughed under her breath, and her new husband shook his head. The judge went pale, his hand trembled, and he whispered, "Dear God, is that really him?" Everyone turned to stare. They had no idea who I was until, there are laughs that can heal a room. And then there's the kind my ex-wife Melissa let out the moment I walked into that courtroom. The kind that could curdle milk, a tiny, fake, nasal chuckle that said, "Oh, I still think I'm the smartest person here." That same laugh she used when pretending to understand crypto. You know the one, Bitcoins like Monopoly money, right? Yeah, that laugh. The sound of ego and high heels. Her new husband, Brandon, sat beside her, adjusting his too tight suit like the room owed him extra oxygen. He gave me that smirk guys give when they think they've already won. The kind of smirk that makes you want to call security just to watch him get nervous. Then he shook his head slowly, like I was a parking ticket he couldn't afford to deal with. Cute. I gave him a little nod that said, "You're about to wish you stayed home, champ." Then something strange happened. The judge froze mid-gavel, hand hovering in the air like he just realized he left the stove on. His eyes went wide and he whispered, almost reverently, "Dear God, is that really him?" Now, let me paint this picture. A packed courtroom, lawyers, press, my ex's PR team pretending to be interested in justice, and all of them turning their heads toward me like I was a celebrity who just crashed a PTA meeting. The silence that followed, louder than Melissa's ego on a good day. See, they thought I was here to beg, to play the sad ex-husband routine. The one who shows up disheveled, muttering about what's fair, while clutching old photo albums and tissues. Oh, no, not today. I was here to educate. 7 years ago, I was the quiet guy in the background, the supportive husband, the one who handled the numbers while Melissa handled the vision. I built the foundation for her little empire, the same empire she later accidentally claimed as hers during the divorce. Yeah. She called it a clerical oversight, like accidentally claiming the Taj Mahal because you happened to own a potted plant back then. She said I lacked ambition, that I was too comfortable, that I needed to think bigger. She said it while packing her designer suitcases and taking my golden retriever Max with her. She left with half my patience and all my self-respect. I rebuilt both, just with better furniture. But here's the twist they didn't see coming. Ambition called me back. Not the desperate I'll prove you wrong kind. No, the calm, calculated kind that makes you smile at the chaos because you know how the movie ends. I walked in wearing a dark navy suit that screamed revenge but make it tasteful. Custom fit, clean lines, no tie, because confidence doesn't need decoration. The bailiff even straightened up when I passed. The man probably thought I was a visiting senator. Melissa's lawyer, a weasel named Pratt, adjusted his glasses, looked at me, then whispered something to her. She leaned in, eyes narrowing, that fake socialite smile cracking. She wasn't expecting me to look successful. She wanted the version of me she left, the one drowning in spreadsheets and heartbreak, not the guy who'd turned those same spreadsheets into companies she couldn't afford to invest in. "Mr. Reed," the judge said finally, clearing his throat. "It's been a while." "Good to see you, Your Honor," I said, voice steady. "Last time I was here, I was paying for someone else's ambition." Melissa's head snapped toward me. Brandon blinked. The courtroom chuckled softly. That little ripple of laughter you get when people sense blood in the water. I sat down next to my lawyer, Liam Cruz, my oldest friend and the only man I trust with both secrets and sarcasm. He whispered, "You sure you're ready for this?" I smirked. "Oh, I've been practicing in the mirror for 7 years. Today's the recital." The judge flipped through the files like he was browsing a bad script. "This is quite the situation. Property disputes, intellectual rights, patent ownership." He looked at Melissa. "Mrs. Turner." "It's Reed," she said quickly, then hesitated. "I mean, it was Reed. It's Turner now." I smiled sweetly. "Yeah. We upgraded her last name during the recall." Brandon muttered something under his breath, probably about me needing therapy. I ignored him. Therapy was what I'd been doing for years. Except my version came with lawyers, LLCs, and a secret I'd been saving for just this occasion. As the judge continued, my mind drifted for a moment. 7 years ago, I'd stood in this exact courtroom. Same wood paneling, same stale air, same pitying glances. Melissa had worn white that day. Like irony was her favorite color. She said, "Julian, I just don't feel challenged by you anymore." That line stuck with me, not because it hurt, but because she said it like a CEO firing her intern. I remember thinking, "You'll regret underestimating me." And oh, she did. The bailiff read out the case title, Reed vs. Turner Holdings. It sounded poetic, like a remix of Karma with better rhythm. As the hearing began, I watched her. She kept glancing my way, tapping her nails against the desk like Morse code for panic. Her new husband whispered things to her, but she barely heard. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. Good. The opposing lawyer started with his grand opening. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about greed, deception, and betrayal. I almost raised my hand. You're half right. Just switch sides. The judge gave me a look, the kind that says, behave. But his lips twitched like he wanted to laugh. Even he remembered the old days. The quiet Julian who never spoke up. This new version, he was enjoying the upgrade. When it was our turn, Liam stood, smooth, confident, didn't even look at notes. Your Honor, he began. My client isn't here to argue over scraps. He's here to reclaim what was his and, ironically, what he built. He glanced at me. He's also here because someone forgot that contracts have signatures. The courtroom murmured. Melissa shifted in her chair. I leaned back, crossed my legs, and watched the tension unfold like a live Netflix show. She whispered something to her lawyer, and he nodded. Then she raised her hand, trying to sound calm. Your Honor, this is absurd. My ex-husband is bitter because I moved on. This is harassment. I raised my hand. Objection to her acting career. The courtroom erupted in laughter. Even the stenographer looked like she wanted to high-five me. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Mr. Reed, please. Sorry, Your Honor. Old habits. Continue. Melissa glared daggers. You think this is funny? Not yet, I said. But I have good comedic timing. Brandon's face was turning red. He tried to look composed, but his jaw kept twitching. You're pathetic, he muttered loud enough for the room to hear. I looked at him with that calm, collected smile I'd perfected over years of pretending to like her cooking. Pathetic? Buddy, you married the sequel. Boom. Gasps, a few chuckles. Even the judge's clerk bit her lip to hide a grin. See, what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't come to play defense. I came to set the stage. Everything after today would unfold exactly how I planned. This was just Act 1, and I'd written the script. I leaned forward slightly, hands clasped. Your Honor, I said. I have documentation, witnesses, and a few surprises. But before we dive in, I'd like to say something on record. The judge nodded cautiously. Go ahead. I turned toward Melissa, locking eyes with her. The kind of look that makes someone wish they had sunglasses for their soul. 7 years ago, I walked into this room a broken man. Today, I walk in as a man rebuilt, with receipts. So before anyone assumes I'm here out of spite, let's make one thing clear. I'm not here to win her back. I'm here to collect what's mine and give her something money can't buy. Accountability. Silence. Absolute, beautiful silence. You could hear Brandon's ego deflate. Melissa blinked twice, then forced that fake, press-friendly smile back onto her face, but her hands trembled. She picked up a pen, dropped it, then laughed nervously. That same crypto laugh. Full circle. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Reed, he said, voice quieter now. I think everyone here understands you perfectly. Good, I said, smiling. Because class is officially in session. That's when the gavel struck, echoing like thunder through the courtroom. People whispered, cameras clicked, and in that brief, electric moment, I felt something shift. Not in the case, but in me. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't the quiet husband or the forgotten ex or the guy who lost everything. I was Julian Reed, the man who built, rebuilt, and now stood taller than the mess that tried to bury him. Melissa's laugh had started this moment years ago. The same laugh that belittled my dreams, dismissed my patience, and mocked my silence. But this time, that laugh, it wasn't power. It was panic. And I swear, when she glanced away, I almost laughed too. Not out of bitterness, but out of poetic satisfaction. Because that laugh, the one that started it all, it was about to echo right back where it belonged. 3 years after Melissa packed her designer luggage and my self-esteem into the same moving truck, I thought the universe had finally run out of ways to surprise me. I'd stopped expecting apologies, stopped checking her Instagram business updates, and stopped wondering why the word karma hadn't shown up yet. Turns out karma doesn't text back. It sends mail. And not the kind you want to open standing up. It was a random Tuesday. You know the type, slightly depressing, suspiciously quiet, and the kind of weather that makes you question if God's thermostat got stuck on May. I was sipping burnt coffee in my kitchen/office/bachelor bunker when I heard the mailbox creak open outside. My mailman, Rick, yelled through the door like we were in a sitcom. Julian, got something weird for you. No ticking, feels expensive. That last part got my attention. Expensive and weird. That combo only shows up for 2 reasons. Either you're getting sued or life's about to get entertaining. I opened the door and there it was. A thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with wax like it came straight from a period drama. No return address, just my name, Julian Reed, written in handwriting that looked like it belonged to an 18th century poet with trust issues. Rick leaned against the fence, grinning. It ain't ticking, so that's good news. Appreciate the vote of confidence, Rick, I said, sliding him a coffee can tip for his efforts. Inside, I sat down at the table, tore open the envelope, and braced for impact. What fell out wasn't a lawsuit. It wasn't a prank. It was a stack of legal documents, a certified will, and a short letter from the law office of Harold Stein, Melissa's late uncle, my former mentor. The man who taught me everything I knew about strategic thinking, business structure, and how to survive board meetings with billionaires who smell like cigar smoke and power. The letter was short, but it hit harder than a tax audit. Julian, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Which means the truth can finally be set right. I've left everything to you. Not Melissa. You. Because you earned it when she forgot what loyalty meant. Harold. I blinked, then blinked again, then laughed. Not a chuckle, not a smirk. A full, belly-aching, can't-breathe kind of laugh. It was the first time in years I laughed so hard that my neighbor banged on the wall and yelled, "Bro, share the joke or shut up." Harold, you magnificent old fox, I said out loud, staring at the papers spread across my table like a monopoly board of revenge. Her dream house, my name. Her company's core patent, the one that built her empire, my signature. Her Tesla, technically company property, which now fell under my jurisdiction. It was as if karma had gone shopping with my old wish list and delivered express. I sat there for a solid 10 minutes, just staring at it all, grinning like a man who just discovered irony had a sense of humor. You ever laugh so hard that it turns into tears, and then the tears turn into disbelief, and then disbelief turns into, oh God, I need a lawyer before I do something stupid? Yeah, that was me. So I called Liam Cruz, my guy, my best friend, the same lawyer who helped me survive the divorce paperwork without spontaneously combusting. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy but laced with curiosity. Please tell me you're not calling to complain about your ex-wife's cooking show again. Better, I said. Remember Harold Stein? There was a pause. The old man with the cane and the personality of a Bond villain? Yeah, he left me everything. Everything like his mug collection or everything? Try her company, her mansion, her Tesla, and her favorite tax deduction, the one named Turner Enterprises. Silence, then a low whistle. Holy hell. Karma just sent you a care package. I leaned back in my chair, still grinning. No sender, no warning, just pure poetic justice delivered to my kitchen table. Liam chuckled. So, what's the plan? Simple, I said. Time to clean the mess. Yours or hers? I smirked. Same thing. We met at his office the next morning. Liam's firm wasn't your typical suit and briefcase setup. It was more like a caffeine-powered war room. He had case files stacked taller than my self-restraint and a coffee pot that looked like it had been through more trials than the client's. He flipped through Harold's documents like a kid unwrapping Christmas presents. Damn, this is airtight. He didn't just leave you assets, he left you leverage. Look at this clause. The patent transfer is tied to your original investment shares. It reverts back to you after his death if the company's current leadership is deemed fraudulent. He looked up, smirking. And you can guess whose current leadership. I grinned. Melissa and her discount Kendall Roy. Exactly. He tapped the folder. If we file this correctly, you own everything before they can even fake a new logo. Now, if you've ever been betrayed on both emotional and financial fronts, you know how sweet it feels to have receipts. I'd spent years biting my tongue, watching her parade around as some business icon, giving interviews about female empowerment while stepping on the same guy who built her damn ladder. She took credit for the product, the strategy, the investors, all while calling me the quiet one. But Harold, the old man, saw through it. Even in death, he'd managed to pull off the greatest mic drop of corporate karma. Liam grinned, leaning back. You realize this is about to be chaos, right? Once she finds out, she'll go nuclear. Good, I said. I'm tired of her playing the victim. Let's give her a new role. The example. By Friday, we'd filed the claim, registered the transfer, and sent polite notifications to every relevant office. That's lawyer speak for we launched a legal nuke wrapped in a bow. The moment those papers went through, her company's stock froze. Her board of directors started panicking, and I sat on my couch with a beer, watching it all unfold on the news like I just tuned into a season finale I helped write. The headline read, Turner Holdings faces legal dispute over patent ownership. Sources say ex-husband may be key beneficiary. Oh, the comment section was pure gold. People were tagging her in posts like it was a scavenger hunt for schadenfreude. Her PR team tried damage control, calling it a misunderstanding. Yeah, misunderstanding. That's what I call stealing intellectual property, gaslighting a marriage, and still thinking you're untouchable. Around midnight, My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, already guessing who it was. Julian. Melissa's voice came through tight and furious. You think this is funny? Funny? No, I said, sipping my beer. It's hysterical. You should try laughing for real sometime. You had no right. Actually, I cut in. Harold gave me all the rights. Literally. In writing. With witnesses. You want me to send you a copy or do you prefer learning through headlines? She went quiet for a moment, then hissed. You'll regret this. Already did, I said. It was called marriage. Click. End of call. Sweetest silence I'd ever heard. The next morning, Liam called. She tried to freeze the assets. Let me guess. Failed. Like her last attempt at sincerity. Perfect, I said. Then we move forward. Phase 2. He laughed. You naming your revenge plan again? Not revenge, I said, sipping coffee. Education. We arranged a press statement. Clean, professional, and with just enough bite to make her spin. It said, Julian Reed, original co-founder and silent partner of Turner Holdings, has assumed legal ownership of the company's core patent portfolio following the wishes of late benefactor Harold Stein. Translation, I'm back and I brought paperwork. By that evening, the internet was split into two camps. Team Melissa, who believed she was the misunderstood genius, and Team Julian, who just wanted justice, and maybe a t-shirt line. My inbox flooded with journalists, business analysts, and a few ex-colleagues who suddenly remembered I existed. Then, as if the universe wanted to add seasoning to the meal, a courier arrived at my door with another package, this time from Harold's estate. Inside was a handwritten note and a flash drive. The note read, Julian, if she ever laughs again, play this. I held that little USB like it was a grenade made of truth. I didn't know what was on it yet, but Harold didn't do drama without purpose. I slipped it into my desk drawer. The game was changing, and I was done being the pawn. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker against the glass buildings, the same skyline Melissa once said she'd conquer. I raised my glass to it, smirking. Well, honey, I muttered. Consider it conquered. My phone buzzed again. Liam this time. She's panicking, he said. Her PR's in meltdown. Her board wants answers. They can't spin this anymore. I smiled. Good. Let them stew. I'm just getting started. He chuckled. You know what, Julian? I think Harold would have been proud of this. Nah, I said, finishing my drink. Harold would have called it overdue. I leaned back in my chair, letting the night wind brush past me. For once, I didn't feel like the underdog or the ex or the man who lost. I felt even, balanced. The universe had hit reply all. Injustice had copied me in. Sometimes life doesn't give you a fair ending. But every now and then, if you're patient, if you play it smart, if you let karma drive, it delivers a sequel better than you could have written yourself. And this one, oh, it was just getting good. There's something about hearing a dead man's voice that makes you question everything. Your sanity, your life choices, even your Wi-Fi connection. Especially when that dead man happens to be Harold Stein, my late mentor, Melissa's rich uncle, and the human embodiment of I told you so. It started 3 days after I found out he'd left me everything. Liam and I were knee-deep in legal chaos, buried in documents, signatures, and 1,000 emails from people who suddenly wanted to reconnect. You know how it is. Go broke and everyone forgets your number, get rich again, and they find it faster than the IRS. We were in Harold's old office, the one downtown that still smelled like cigar smoke and old money. It hadn't been touched since his funeral. Dusty bookshelves, heavy drapes, portraits of men who looked like they scolded their children for smiling. The place screamed legacy. With a side of guilt. Liam was rummaging through Harold's filing cabinet, muttering curses about missing paperwork. I was leaning against his mahogany desk, scrolling through my phone, pretending to help. That's when he said it. Julian. His voice had that weird mix of curiosity and please tell me I'm not about to summon demons. He held up a small silver USB drive. The old kind, scratched, unlabeled, and suspiciously shiny. Where'd you find that? I asked. Behind a drawer. Taped to the back panel, he said. Classic Harold move. Man hid things like he thought the CIA was after him. Honestly, given his tax strategies, they probably were. We exchanged a look, that unspoken this could either make us rich or make us cry look. Liam plugged it into his laptop, the fan immediately whining like it knew drama was coming. A single audio file popped up, for Julian.mp3. I frowned. Not even a password. That's suspiciously friendly. Liam shrugged. Play it. He clicked. And then Harold's voice. It was weak, raspy, but still sharp in that way only he could manage. If you're hearing this, Julian, it means the vultures have finally finished circling. I froze. Liam's jaw tightened. Harold coughed into the mic. Melissa and Brandon, yes, I know, tried to force me to change my will. Said it was for the good of the company. They brought in some cheap lawyer, made me sign papers I couldn't read because of my eyesight. But I wasn't senile. No matter what those snakes thought. I glanced at Liam. His eyebrows were halfway to his hairline. Harold continued, voice trembling but defiant. I kept the real will hidden. You, Julian, deserve it all. You built what they stole. And if anyone questions it, well, this recording is your insurance policy. Then there was shuffling. Papers, footsteps, and then a voice I recognized instantly, even though I wished I didn't. Brandon. Uncle Harold, it's not personal, he said, tone dripping with fake charm. We just need your cooperation. You wouldn't want Melissa to be upset. Harold chuckled bitterly. Son, you couldn't scare a houseplant. Brandon snapped, voice raised. Sign it, old man. And then Melissa's voice. Cold. Calculated. Just do it, uncle. We'll take care of everything. He doesn't deserve any of it. Silence. Then Harold's strained voice. You'll regret this, Melissa. End of recording. For a moment, the only sound was Liam's laptop fan and my pulse doing backflips. Holy hell, Liam whispered. That's direct evidence. HD sound, too, I said, trying to sound calm but failing miserably. My hands were shaking. They bullied an old man. On tape. She and her toy husband. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. Julian, this isn't just civil anymore. This is criminal level stupid. Yeah, I said slowly, staring at the screen. And poetic level satisfying. For years, I'd been painted as the boring one, the quiet one, the guy who couldn't stand up for himself. But now I had something louder than her PR team, more powerful than her connections. The truth. Straight from the grave. Liam looked at me, half grinning, half terrified. So, what's the move? You planning to nuke them with this? Nah, I said, smirking. I'm going educational. Educational? Yeah, I said. They'll learn today. He burst out laughing. You're insane. I've been called worse. Mostly by her. We sat there for a while, staring at the USB like it was Excalibur. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same woman who used Harold's name to humiliate me at investor dinners was now about to be exposed by his voice. She always used to joke, Julian, you're too patient. Yeah, patience is a hell of a teacher. I picked up the drive, turned it over in my fingers. We'll copy it, store it, and lock it down. Multiple backups, cloud, physical, encrypted, tattoo it on a rock, whatever it takes. Liam nodded. Already on it. By the next morning, we had 5 copies. One with Liam, one with me, one in a bank vault, one on a secure drive, and one labeled for court because subtlety is overrated. But I couldn't shake the sound of her voice from my head. That cold tone, that entitlement, the same voice that once told me I was lucky she chose me. I believed her once. Now I wanted her to hear herself the way Harold did, the way the world soon would. Later that afternoon, Liam called. You should listen to the full recording. There's more. I frowned. There's more? Oh, yeah. You stopped it too early. Play it. He sent me the rest. A short final message Harold had added at the end. One that wasn't in the first playback. Julian, Harold said softly. When the time comes, don't just fight them. Teach them. The best revenge isn't destruction, it's demonstration. Show them what integrity looks like when the lights are on. Then a chuckle. Also, check the red folder in my bottom drawer. You'll need it. Click. End of file. Now, if you've ever gotten advice from a ghost, you know it's hard to ignore. So back I went to his office the next morning. The place was still gloomy, dust dancing in the sunlight like bored spirits. I knelt, opened the bottom drawer, and sure enough, a thick red folder. Inside were signed statements from board members, notarized copies of his real will, and even photos of the fake signing session. Harold had covered every base like a man who'd lived through too many family dinners. I just stood there for a moment, holding that folder, feeling something between grief and vindication. The old man had believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I looked up at his portrait on the wall, stern eyes, half smile. You sneaky genius, I whispered. You really planned this? Liam called again. You good? Good, I said, smiling faintly. I'm about to be great. We met again at his office that night, rain tapping against the windows like a drum roll. He spread everything out on the table, the audio file, the documents, the folder. You realize this is a slam dunk, right? Yeah, I said. But I don't want a slam dunk. I want a standing ovation. He chuckled. Then you better rehearse your speech. Oh, I've been rehearsing for 7 years, I said. That night, After we finalized everything, I drove home with a USB in my pocket. I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car, engine off, staring at the rain streaking down the windshield. You ever feel a mix of triumph and sadness? That's what it was. Victory with a side of loss. Harold had given me the ammo, but also the lesson. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. About finally getting to tell the truth without shouting. About letting her choke on the silence she used to weaponize. I thought back to all the times she laughed at my ideas. The late nights when I stayed up fixing her business proposals while she took credit for them on morning shows. The charity gala where she called me the supportive husband in front of investors like I was her intern. Every single humiliation, every single eye roll, they all came back now, but this time they made me smile. Because soon the world would hear the real story in Harold's own voice. I looked at the USB one last time before putting it away. Rest easy, old man, I said softly. They're about to learn everything you wanted them to. When I finally stepped out of the car, I caught my reflection in the window. Calm, confident, older, sharper. Not the quiet man she discarded. Not the pushover she'd rewritten in her version of the story. This was me. Version 2.0, Justice. I walked upstairs, plugged in my phone, and typed one message to Liam. Tomorrow we move. Class in session. He replied instantly. Lesson plan ready, Professor. I smiled. Melissa and Brandon had no idea what was coming. And the best part? They were about to hear it from the one man they could never silence. The voice from their past. When people say the truth always comes out, they never tell you how. They make it sound like the truth just floats in one day wearing a cape, announcing, I'm here to fix everything. Spoiler alert, that's not how it works. The truth usually shows up wearing orthopedic shoes, smelling like lavender lotion, and carrying a box of old photos. Her name was Mrs. Harper, Harold Stein's longtime housekeeper. I hadn't seen her since the days when I used to drop off documents at Harold's mansion, and she'd feed me oatmeal cookies that tasted like love and mild judgment. When Harold died, she vanished into retirement somewhere near Clearwater, Florida, where all retired legends go to play bingo and terrify seagulls. But when Liam tracked her down and told her I was handling Harold's estate, she said, "Oh, I remember everything, dear. When can I testify?" That's how I found myself flying to Florida on a Wednesday afternoon, stuck on a plane beside a guy who ate Funyuns like he was trying to win a contest. I hadn't been to Florida since my honeymoon with Melissa, back when I still thought For Better or Worse had a warranty. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now heading back to find evidence that could legally vaporize her reputation. Mrs. Harper lived in a cozy bungalow surrounded by flamingo statues and more wind chimes than any neighborhood needed. She opened the door before I could even knock twice, wearing a pastel housecoat and the kind of smile that says she's been waiting to deliver a confession. "Julian Reed," she said, eyes bright behind her glasses. "I was wondering when you'd come." "You were?" I asked, taken aback. "Of course. Harold told me if you ever showed up, I should put on coffee. He said you'd need it." I laughed. Well, he wasn't wrong about that. She waved me inside. The place smelled like cinnamon and nostalgia. Every wall was lined with framed photos. Harold at charity galas. Harold shaking hands with senators. Harold standing next to a 1998 Buick like it was a supermodel. And tucked among them, a few that made my chest tighten. Harold and me at his office years ago, back when I was still the eager intern with a bad haircut and good intentions. Mrs. Harper shuffled toward the kitchen, her slippers squeaking faintly. "Cream and sugar?" "Black's fine," I said. "Ah, strong one. Just like Harold." She poured 2 cups, then sat across from me at the table. "Now, what exactly do you need from an old woman who's seen too much and bites her tongue too little?" I smiled. "Honestly? The truth." She raised an eyebrow. "That's my specialty." I pulled out the USB with Harold's voice recording. "You probably know what this is." Her lips pursed. "Oh, I know all about that day." She took a long sip of coffee. She made him sign the fake papers right there in his study. Her new man was standing behind him like some sort of bouncer. Harold's hands were shaking so badly, I thought he'd spill ink everywhere. I leaned forward. "You were there?" "Front row seat," she said proudly. I told her it wasn't right. She smiled at me. That cold smile rich people use when they think you're furniture. Said I should mind my business. So I did, meaning I memorized everything. She got up slowly, disappeared into the hallway, and came back holding a thick, dusty photo album. "Harold's birthday," she said, setting it down. "The same day she brought those papers." She claimed they were for a business merger, but Harold looked like someone was forcing him to sign away his dog. She flipped through the pages until she found the photo. Grainy but clear enough to make my stomach twist. Harold, pale and weak, sitting at his desk. Melissa standing beside him, red nails clutching a pen, that fake smile plastered on her face. And behind her, Brandon in all his useless glory, watching like he owned the world. Mrs. Harper tapped the photo. That's the moment. See her hand? She's holding the paper right over the reel Will Harold wrote the week before. She switched them while he was distracted. I stared at the photo, trying not to laugh out of sheer disbelief. She really posed for the crime scene. Oh, honey, Mrs. Harper said, chuckling. She thought she was starring in her own movie. The one where she wins everything and walks off into the sunset. Bad script, I said. Terrible ending coming soon. She grinned, revealing a row of surprisingly strong teeth for 82. You sound just like Harold. He used to say, if you let fools talk long enough, they'll narrate their own downfall. We spent the next hour going through her memories. She remembered everything. The day, the clothes, the smell of Harold's cologne, even the brand of pen Melissa used. One of those fancy gold ones with her initials on it. She said, bought it special for the occasion. Probably thought it made her look powerful. Yeah, I said. Because nothing screams legitimate like committing fraud with personalized stationery. When she was done, I sat back feeling a mix of gratitude and rage. Mrs. Harper, would you be willing to testify? She didn't hesitate. I'm 82, son. But for that woman, I'll wear heels. I nearly spit out my coffee. You're serious? Serious as heartburn. She made Harold cry that day. I'll never forget that. And nobody makes a good man cry on my watch. Legend. Absolute legend. Before I left, she insisted on packing me cookies for the road and made me promise to call if I needed reinforcement. I told her I might just hire her as my publicist. When I got back to the car, I sat there in my nude holding the photo she gave me. Harold's tired eyes, Melissa's triumphant smirk, Brandon's smug expression. I could practically hear their arrogance through the picture. I snapped a photo of it on my phone and sent it to Liam with one line. Found our eyewitness. And she's ready to rumble. He replied 2 minutes later. Tell me she's not senile. She's sharper than both of us combined. Perfect. Then we moved to stage 2. Public humiliation with receipts. By the time I landed back home, Mrs. Harper's testimony had already been drafted, notarized, and filed. Liam was a machine. We've got audio, visuals, and now a witness, he said. At this point, the only thing missing is popcorn. Don't tempt me, I said. I might actually bring some to court. He laughed. You're enjoying this too much. Correction, I said. I'm enjoying justice finally catching up. I'm just giving it directions. The next morning, Melissa's PR team dropped a carefully worded statement. Something about unfounded allegations and distortion of facts by a bitter ex. Classic. I almost admired their commitment to spin. Almost. But I had something better. A grandma with receipts. That afternoon, Liam called, barely containing his amusement. Guess who just tried to reach out to Mrs. Harper? Melissa. Yep. Offered to pay for her silence, offered to help with her medical bills. I snorted. She really thought she could bribe an 82-year-old woman who eats moral integrity for breakfast. She didn't just think it, she recorded it. Who did? Mrs. Harper. Apparently, she's been recording her calls since 2007. She said she doesn't trust these modern hussies. Her words, not mine. I was speechless for a second, then started laughing so hard I had to sit down. We're going to win this thing on nostalgia and sass alone. Mrs. Harper sent us the audio that night. You could hear Melissa's fake kindness dripping through every syllable. Mrs. Harper, darling, I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable. Maybe we could come to a private arrangement. And then Mrs. Harper's reply, smooth as butter. Oh, sweetheart. I don't make arrangements with liars, but I'll save you a front row seat at court. I almost fell off my chair listening to it. The woman was unstoppable. We added that recording to the evidence list. Liam grinned like a kid on Christmas morning. You realize we just turned her whole narrative into confetti, right? Oh, I realize, I said. But let's not rush the parade. I want her to watch it fall. That night, I sat in my living room, the document spread out before me. The USB, the photos, the witness statement, the call recording. All of it neatly arranged like trophies of poetic justice. I thought about Harold again. His words echoing from that recording. Don't just fight them. Teach them. Yeah, I thought. Lesson plan approved. Sometimes revenge isn't a grand explosion. It's a slow, precise dismantling. Piece by piece. Truth by truth. And tonight, I realized that even the smallest piece, like a photo from an old maid's album, could crack an empire built on lies. Before heading to bed, I texted Mrs. Harper a simple, thank you. She responded within 2 minutes. You're welcome, dear. I'll start practicing my courtroom smile. Should I bring cookies? I grinned. Definitely bring cookies. Because when this was all over, I wanted Melissa's downfall to taste just a little bit sweet. You ever get a text so shady it deserves its own thunderclap? That was me. Tuesday night, 8:47 p.m. scrolling through my phone when her name popped up. Melissa. I hadn't heard from her in months, which meant either she'd found religion or trouble. Spoiler, it wasn't the first one. The message read, "Let's meet at the lake house. We can end this quietly." Quietly? That word did a full gymnastics routine in my brain. Melissa didn't do quiet. The woman could start drama in a library. When she said quietly, what she really meant was, bring your own shovel. I stared at the message for a minute, half laughing, half wondering if she'd finally lost her mind. The lake house, our old getaway spot, now hers, was where we used to spend long weekends pretending to be happy. It's also where I once learned that a broken wine glass travels faster than an apology. But hey, nostalgia is fun. I texted back, sure. What time? Her reply was instant. 9 tomorrow night. Come alone. Of course, because that's how every great murder podcast starts. I told Liam about it the next morning. He nearly choked on his coffee. She invited you to the scene of the crime. Yep. Lake house tomorrow night, I said quietly. Julian, I'm your lawyer and your friend, and both sides of me are screaming, don't go. Relax, I said, smirking. I'm not going unarmed. You're bringing a gun? No, I said. A recorder. He groaned. You're insane. Insane's how I survive these people. So, the next night I drove to the lake house. 2 hours of empty highway and bad AM radio. The closer I got, the more memories came back. Melissa dancing barefoot on the dock. Her laughter echoing off the water. Me thinking she was the love of my life instead of the lesson. Funny how nostalgia feels like food poisoning when you know the ingredients. I pulled into the gravel driveway right on time. The place looked like a perfume commercial. Soft lights glowing from the windows, candles flickering inside, and enough roses on the porch to make a funeral jealous. When she opened the door, I almost didn't recognize her. Melissa always looked immaculate. But tonight she was performing immaculate. Designer dress, pearls, that carefully staged innocent wife expression. Behind her, Brandon stood by the fireplace in a suit that probably cost more than his self-respect. Julian, she said, smiling too wide. You came. Of course, I said, walking in. You said quietly. I had to see what kind of comedy that would be. The air smelled like champagne, expensive perfume, and bad intentions. The table was set for 3. Candles, silverware, wine. Brandon poured himself a drink like he was auditioning for a commercial called Men Who Don't Pay Taxes. Let's sit, Melissa said, motioning to the table. I took my seat directly across from her. The candlelight flickered between us like it knew this was about to get awkward. So, I said, leaning back. How's married life? You two look legally entangled. Melissa exhaled through her nose, that fake calm tone slipping. We don't need to play games, Julian. Good, I said. Because I brought popcorn. Brandon glared. Cut the jokes, Reed. Sorry, I said, shrugging. They're kind of my coping mechanism for dealing with people who steal things. Melissa rolled her eyes. This doesn't have to be hostile. You invited me to a candlelit ambush, I said. Hostility's already on the menu. She forced a laugh. That same laugh she used in court. The one that sounded like guilt in audio form. Julian, we both know this situation's gotten out of hand. The lawyers, the press, the tension. It's bad for all of us. We can fix this. I leaned forward. You can't even fix a lie, Melissa. How exactly do you plan to fix a federal offense? Brandon slammed his glass down. You're not going to get away with this power trip. I smiled. Buddy, you married my ex-wife. Power trips are part of the honeymoon package. Melissa's eyes flashed. I'm trying to be reasonable here. Then why is your lawyer texting reporters? She froze. Brandon looked at her like she'd just confessed to tax evasion, which honestly wouldn't surprise me. Julian, she said, her tone shifting to that manipulative softness I used to fall for. We can end this quietly. You sign the waiver Liam sent over. Agree not to pursue the company, and we'll compensate you generously. I raised an eyebrow. Compensate me? You mean pay me to pretend your fraud didn't happen? It's not fraud, she snapped. It's complicated. Yeah, I said. So surgery, but at least the doctor doesn't steal your organs and call it a misunderstanding. Brandon leaned forward, veins popping in his neck. Be a man, Julian. Take the deal. I smirked. Define man, because last I checked, I'm the one who still has a job and a conscience. He stood up, fists clenched. I didn't flinch. I just slowly twirled the pen she'd placed beside the contract, spinning it between my fingers like a baton. Wow, I said. You even changed the font. Helvetica. Classy move. Melissa hissed. Sign it and walk away. You'll still come out rich. Melissa, I said, leaning forward, my tone calm but surgical. Rich isn't just about money. It's about peace. You traded yours for Instagram followers. Her expression cracked. Brandon muttered something about ungrateful bastards and poured another drink. I clicked the pen, letting the sound echo in the silence. My recorder, tucked in my pocket, was picking up every word. You really think people will believe you? She sneered. You, the quiet ex, the nobody. You'll be laughed out of court. Maybe, I said, smiling. But the laughter won't be mine. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out, I said. About 30 seconds after the judge presses play. Her face paled. You have nothing. Oh, I have everything, I said. And the best part? You gave me most of it. For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of the clock and Brandon's nervous sip of whiskey. Melissa's hands trembled slightly, just enough for me to notice. She wasn't used to losing control. She thrived on it. Tonight, she was choking on it. She stood abruptly, trying to regain composure. Fine. If you want to go down this path, so be it. But don't expect me to hold back. Sweetheart, I said, standing too. You've been holding back the truth for years. It's about time you let something honest out. Brandon muttered, you're going to regret this. Funny, I said, smiling. That's what your accountant said before the audit. Melissa gasped. What audit? Oh, come on. You think Liam didn't dig? You've been moving funds from Harold's trust through dummy accounts in Turner Holdings for years. But don't worry. I'm sure the prosecutor will understand. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? You stole from your dying uncle. I'm just returning the favor. Interest included. For a second, I thought she might actually throw her wine glass at me again. Old habits die hard. But instead, she grabbed the contract, tore it in half, and hissed, you'll burn for this. Maybe, I said, walking toward the door. But at least I'll burn clean. As I reached for the handle, Brandon called out. You think this recording means anything? You'll never prove it was real. I turned back, grinning. Who said I only had one? And with that, I left. The cool night air hit me like a baptism. I walked to my car, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the thrill of knowing the trap had closed. I pulled out my phone, checked the recorder. Everything was there. Her offer, his threats, her panic. Crisp audio, the kind of evidence that makes prosecutors salivate. As I started the engine, I caught one last glimpse of the lake house in the rearview mirror. The candles flickering, the windows glowing. It looked peaceful from the outside, but inside? That was the sound of empires cracking. Halfway down the road, my phone buzzed. Text from Liam. You alive? Barely. Got everything on tape. Good. Send it over. Also, she tried to bribe me with champagne and Helvetica. Huh? Classic Melissa. See you tomorrow. I smiled, rolling down the window. The night air tasted like vindication. When I got home, I played the recording again, this time on my laptop. Hearing her voice beg and manipulate, it was almost nostalgic. Almost. I saved the file in 3 locations and sent copies to Liam with the subject line, dinner served cold. Then I poured myself a drink. Whiskey, 2 cubes, no regrets, and toasted to Harold, wherever he was. Hope you're watching, old man, I said quietly. She's finally learning. And for the first time in years, I laughed. A real one, not the bitter kind. Because this time, I wasn't laughing at my pain. I was laughing at the ending she'd written for herself. Dinner was over, and the main course? Justice. If there's one thing I've learned about powerful idiots, it's that they always assume loyalty can be rented. They think everything has a price. Integrity, silence, friendship, even memory. That lesson got reinforced the next morning when my phone lit up with the kind of call you only get when someone's backed into a corner. I was mid-sip on my second cup of coffee, halfway through reading an article titled, How to Avoid Your Ex in a City of 8 Million People, when Liam called. His voice had that tone, the one he used when he was equal parts disgusted and entertained. Julian, he said, you're going to want to hear this. Now, when a lawyer says that before 9 a.m., it's never good news. Please tell me she didn't file another motion, I groaned. Oh, she filed something, he said. It's called desperation. Talk to me. Brandon called me. That woke me up faster than caffeine ever could. He called you? Yep. Offered me 200 grand to drop the case. Said it's for the family's reputation. I almost spit out my coffee. 200 grand? What does he think he's in, a Netflix political drama? Oh, it gets better, Liam said, laughing. He left it on voicemail. Full confession. I recorded the call back, too. I leaned back in my chair, grinning. You're kidding. I'm a lawyer, not a magician. I don't joke with gold like this. Send it. A minute later, my phone buzzed with the file. I hit play and there it was. Brandon's voice, nervous but trying to sound confident, like a used car salesman pitching morality. Hey, Liam, he began. Look, we both know how messy this is getting. Melissa's emotional and Julian's being stubborn. Nobody wants this circus in public. So, what if we make it worth your while? Say, 200,000. You drop the case. Everyone moves on. You can even tell your client it was a dead end. There was a pause. I could hear Liam's faint chuckle in the recording. Then he said, You do realize you just tried to bribe an attorney, right? Brandon stammered. No, it's not a bribe. It's an incentive for discretion. Liam replied smoothly. Good, because it's about to trend on Twitter. Click. End of call. I couldn't stop laughing. Not the polite kind. The unhinged kind that makes neighbors check if you're okay. He actually said incentive for discretion. My God, this man's thesaurus should be burned. Liam called back, chuckling. We're sending this to the prosecutor today. This case just went from civil to criminal faster than Brandon's brain cell count. Who's on the prosecution? Dana Ellis, he said. You remember her? The assistant district attorney who made that oil exec cry on live television? Oh yeah, I said, grinning. The woman who could slice lies in half just by blinking. That's the one. She's been waiting for a case like this. Well, congratulations to her, I said. She's about to get front row seats to the Melissa and Brandon meltdown tour. By noon, Liam had already forwarded everything to Dana's office. She called me directly that afternoon. Her voice was smooth, but carried that edge of someone who'd seen too many rich people try to wiggle out of accountability. Mr. Reed, she said. I've reviewed the preliminary documents. The evidence is substantial. That's legal code for holy crap, right? She laughed softly. Something like that. We're filing formal charges for attempted bribery and obstruction. Music to my ears. And Mr. Reed, she added, for what it's worth, you handled this well. Most people would have reacted emotionally. You kept it clean. I smiled. I've had practice pretending to stay calm while being married to the problem. She chuckled. I'll be in touch when we set the pretrial schedule. After we hung up, I sat there for a while staring at my phone. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was justice tightening its seatbelt. For years, I'd been made to feel like the fool, like the naive guy who didn't know how the world worked. But now, the same people who laughed at me were the punchline. Around 4 o'clock, Liam stopped by my apartment. He tossed his briefcase on the couch and handed me a beer. You're officially the star witness in the dumbest bribery attempt I've ever seen. Cheers to that, I said, clinking bottles. He sat down, sighing. They're unraveling, man. Melissa's PR team tried to spin the story, said the audio was deep-faked. I snorted. Of course, because when you're caught lying, the best move is to invent new technology. Dana already verified it. Timestamp, voice match, everything. Beautiful. He took a long drink, then grinned. You know what the best part is? What? She called me this morning. Melissa. Yep. Said she wanted to clarify the situation. I told her she could clarify it in court. She must be panicking, I said, smirking. Oh, she is. Her husband's under investigation. Her company's frozen. And her old maid's got better PR than she does. The woman's basically one yoga retreat away from a nervous breakdown. We laughed for a while. The kind of laughter that tastes like relief. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was reacting. I was leading. I wasn't the quiet husband cleaning up after the storm. I was the storm. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but I had a gut feeling. I answered. Julian. The voice was frantic. Melissa. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. Afternoon, Mrs. Turner. Or is it Mrs. Panic now? Don't do this, she said quickly. You're ruining both our lives. Oh, sweetheart, I said, smiling. You ruined yours. I'm just reading the fine print. This isn't you, she pleaded. You're not cruel. I chuckled. Funny. That's what Harold said right before you forged his will. Silence. Then you think you're the hero here? No, I said. I'm the reminder. What does that mean? It means you spent years pretending consequences didn't exist. I'm just reintroducing you to them. She inhaled sharply, trying to stay composed. We can still make this go away. Name your price. See, that's your problem, I said. You keep mistaking my principles for a negotiation. Julian, please. No, I cut in, voice firm. Save it for the deposition. And bring your husband. I think the prosecutor wants to hear his incentive for discretion speech again. I hung up before she could respond. For a moment, I just sat there, the silence around me thick and satisfying. She'd finally run out of manipulation, out of smirks, out of ways to twist the narrative. The queen of control had lost her script. The next morning, Dana called again. "Mr. Reed, just confirming the bribery case has been added to the larger fraud file. We'll be moving quickly. My office appreciates your cooperation." "Happy to help," I said. "You might want to bring popcorn to court. It's going to be cinematic." She laughed. "Trust me, I'm already reserving a seat." When I hung up, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. The bitterness that had fueled me for years had turned into something quieter. Focus. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums while sipping coffee. I spent the rest of the day going through files, cleaning up the last details for Liam. He dropped by later with a smug grin. "Guess who just called me again?" I sighed. "Brandon." Bingo. This time he offered 300 grand. I laughed. "Inflation's a killer, huh?" "Yep." And he started the call with, "This isn't a bribe. It's an opportunity." I nearly fell out of my chair. "Please tell me you recorded that, too." "Of course I did. It's practically a hobby now." We both cracked up. Then, as his laughter died down, he looked at me more seriously. "You know, you could have gone the easy route. Sold your silence. Walked away rich." "Yeah," I said quietly. "But then I'd still be that kind of rich. Empty." He nodded slowly. "You really have changed, man." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just finally stopped being polite about my piece." That night, I sat on my balcony again, city lights flickering in the distance. I thought about Harold, about his voice on that recording, about the lesson he'd left me. Don't just fight them, teach them. And for once, I understood it completely. This wasn't about payback anymore. It was about closure, the kind that doesn't need applause, just quiet certainty. I raised my glass to the skyline. "Here's to karma," I said softly. "She's slow, but she's thorough." Then I smiled. A real one. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next storm. I was the calm after it. If you've never had your ex-wife call you irrelevant on national television, let me save you the experience. It's both infuriating and free PR. The day after the bribery news broke, Melissa decided to do what all narcissists do when cornered. Go public and perform. And when I say perform, I mean she practically rolled out a red carpet for her own delusion. I woke up that morning to my phone vibrating like it was having a panic attack. Notifications, texts, tags, all from friends sending me links. There she was on Good Morning Metro, dressed in soft pastel tones like an innocent garden fairy caught in a misunderstanding. The Chiron under her read, "Melissa Turner speaks out, betrayed by a bitter ex." I poured my coffee and turned up the volume. The host, some guy with perfectly symmetrical teeth, leaned in like he was about to uncover a lost treasure. "Melissa, there are reports of fraud, bribery, and evidence manipulation tied to your company. What do you have to say?" She smiled that rehearsed smile I used to see before every argument that somehow ended with me apologizing for existing. "Honestly, Greg, it breaks my heart. Julian was once my partner, but he's become obsessed. He's trying to destroy what we built together because he can't handle that I moved on." I actually laughed out loud. Loud enough for my neighbor to bang on the wall. "Obsessed? Lady, the only thing I'm obsessed with is watching you lose Wi-Fi during your lies." She continued, blinking with fake vulnerability. "He's been spreading misinformation to ruin my reputation. I truly wish him peace." Ah yes, the holy trinity of fake victimhood, tears, denial, and unsolicited blessings. Classic Melissa. I texted Liam immediately. "She's on TV calling me bitter again." He replied within 10 seconds. "She's trending. Hashtag MelissaGate." Is that a thing? Now it is. The internet loves karma. The next few days turned into a PR battlefield. Her camp pushed glossy statements about female entrepreneurship under attack. Mine? We went with facts. Not nearly as shiny, but way more lethal. Liam released a quiet press note. "All evidence regarding Turner Holdings fraud has been submitted to the DA. We remain confident in the legal process." Short, clean, devastating. Meanwhile, Melissa's PR team went into overdrive. They called me vindictive, manipulative, and a man with a vendetta. One outlet even ran a headline, "Ex-husband uses legal system to harass former wife." I called Liam. "They're really trying to spin this. Let me guess. They're saying it's AI generated?" Bingo. Deepfake defense. I groaned. This woman couldn't pass a lie detector, but she's suddenly an expert in synthetic media. "Yep," Liam said, sighing. "It's a circus, man. Reporters, bloggers, legal analysts, everyone wants a piece. Hence the title. The courthouse steps looked like a film premiere the morning of the pretrial hearing. Cameras everywhere. People holding microphones like spears. One reporter even shouted, "Julian, did you bribe the prosecutor to get this far?" I gave him a grin and said, "Nah, I'm just good at making honest people like me." Liam whispered as we walked inside. "You love this too much. Can you blame me?" I said. 7 years of silence and I finally get the mic. Inside, Melissa was already there. She looked like she'd been dipped in gold leaf, perfect hair, pearls, even a white suit. White. As in, look at me. I'm purity personified. Brandon sat beside her, stiff and uncomfortable, probably rehearsing which amendments he was about to violate. Her lawyer, the ever-slimy Mr. Pratt, stood and began his dramatic speech. "Your Honor, the so-called evidence presented by Mr. Reed's counsel cannot be authenticated. Audio technology today is advanced, and anyone can fabricate a recording." The judge leaned forward, unimpressed. "So, your argument is technology is scary?" I had to bite my cheek not to laugh. Liam stood, buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, we anticipated this claim. The audio has been forensically verified by 3 independent labs. The timestamps match the phone records. Unless opposing counsel believes aliens made the call, we rest on evidence." The courtroom snickered. Even the stenographer paused for a second. Melissa whispered something to her lawyer, glaring at me. I smiled politely. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout. It just waits for the lies to collapse. After the hearing, reporters swarmed outside like vultures at a buffet. One shouted, "Mr. Reed, any comment on being called bitter?" I stopped, turned to face the cameras, and said, "If wanting fairness is bitter, then I guess I'm artisanal dark chocolate." The soundbite went viral. Even Dana, the prosecutor, texted me later. "You're good at this. Don't steal my job." By then, Melissa's empire was cracking. Her investors started pulling out faster than gym memberships in February. The board issued a statement distancing themselves from ongoing legal controversies. Translation: we'd rather not drown with her. One of her old friends even sold her out to a gossip blog, confirming she'd been stressed, erratic, and convinced Julian hired hackers. I didn't, though I briefly considered sending her a fake invoice for emotional labor. Then came the tabloids. They labeled the entire ordeal the Turner takedown. Covers read things like love, lies, and lawsuits and ex-husband outsmarts corporate queen. Normally, I'd hate the attention, but honestly, watching her scramble to control the story was better than Netflix. A week before the official trial date, I found myself in my office surrounded by folders, statements, and about 12 cups of coffee. Liam was on the couch, half asleep under a pile of paperwork. "You know," he muttered, "you could have just moved on." I looked up from my desk. "And deprive the public of this masterpiece? No way." He chuckled. "You've gone full petty philosopher. Hey, pettiness with purpose is just strategy in heels." We laughed, but underneath it, I felt something else. Peace. The kind that doesn't need validation, just closure. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was defending dignity. Mine. Harold's. Even the truth's. A few days later, another text from Melissa came through, longer this time, clearly written during one of her late-night panic spirals. "I know you think you've won, but this will destroy both of us. You can't fix pain by inflicting it. Stop before it's too late." I read it twice, then replied. Too late was 7 years ago. This is just me turning the lights back on. I didn't hear from her again after that. The final week before trial felt weirdly calm. The chaos was still there. The media, the hashtags, the gossip. But inside me? Stillness, like I'd already made peace with whatever came next. The morning before the trial, I stopped by Harold's grave. It was quiet. No reporters, no noise. I placed a single white rose on his headstone and said, "You were right, old man. They taught themselves the hard way." Then I added, smirking, "And don't worry, I kept it classy." When I got back to the city, Liam texted. "Everything's set for tomorrow. The DA's ready. We're walking in with confidence and caffeine." I texted back. "Good, because tomorrow the circus ends." But deep down, I already knew it wasn't just their circus. It was mine, too. I'd been part of it once, smiling on command, clapping for the illusion. The difference now was that I finally knew where the exits were. As I shut my phone and leaned back in my chair, I laughed softly to myself. The world could call it petty. They could call it dramatic. But me? I called it closure in 4K with surround sound. Tomorrow wasn't just the trial. It was the encore. Courtrooms have this weird smell. Part coffee, part paper, and part panic. It's like justice has a scent and it's nervous. The morning of the trial, I walked through those courthouse doors feeling like I was entering a movie I'd already seen a dozen times. Only this time, I I wasn't the extra in the background. I was the main event. The place was buzzing. Reporters, cameras, whispers, all that cinematic chaos that makes lawyers secretly love their jobs. My story had turned into a public spectacle. Turner versus Reed, or as Twitter called it, X Wars, the final hearing. People were lined up outside like they were waiting for concert tickets. You'd think Taylor Swift was testifying. When I entered the courtroom, heads turned. Not in that oh no, it's the defendant way, but in that wait, that's him. The calm guy who torched a scandal way. I was wearing a charcoal suit, no tie, simple watch, confidence in fabric form. Liam leaned over and whispered, "You ready?" I smirked. I've been ready since she laughed in my face 7 years ago. Melissa was already seated at the plaintiff's table, front row, pearls glistening like gilt dressed as class. Brandon sat behind her, looking like a man who accidentally bought a one-way ticket to Regretville. Her lawyer, Pratt, had that cocky grin lawyers wear right before losing. Judge Harris entered. An older man with tired eyes and the face of someone who'd seen too many divorces and not enough therapy. Court is now in session, he announced. The gavel hit the wood, echoing like thunder over fragile egos. Dana Ellis, the prosecutor, sat across from Liam. Sharp suit, sharper tone. If confidence could be bottled, hers would be labeled premium grade justice. The first hour was dull procedural stuff, objections, evidence admissions. You know, the appetizer before the chaos. Then Pratt stood up and started his performance. Your Honor, he said dramatically, the defense's entire case rests on fabricated materials. My client has been vilified by the media, betrayed by former associates, and smeared by a bitter ex-husband who cannot accept her success. Melissa did this thing where she lowered her eyes and nodded like a saint forgiving sinners. Classic move. The jury looked mildly sympathetic for about 10 seconds. Dana stood next. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Mrs. Turner and her husband knowingly falsified documents, coerced a dying man, and attempted to bribe counsel representing the rightful heir to Harold Stein's estate. Cue the gasps. Even the stenographer paused mid-typing. Pratt scoffed. Bribe? That's ridiculous. Dana didn't even blink. We have recordings, Mr. Pratt. Multiple. Would you like to hear them or keep pretending? The judge sighed. Proceed. The first audio clip played. Brandon's voice filled the room. We just want to protect the family name. 200,000 should cover discretion. Every head turned toward Melissa and Brandon. He froze, his jaw tight. She whispered something at him. Probably you idiot. Then Dana queued up the next one. Harold's voice. The one from the USB. That shaky, weary tone of a man betrayed. Melissa and Brandon forced me to change my will. But I kept the real one. Julian deserves it all. The courtroom went silent. You could feel the air shift, like everyone just realized the villain wasn't the one they were told it was. Melissa shot to her feet. That's fake, she shouted. You can't prove that's real. Judge Harris raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Turner, sit down. She pointed a trembling finger at me. He's manipulating everyone. He's been obsessed with me for years. I tilted my head. Obsessed is a strong word. I'd go with mildly entertained by your downfall. The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge smirked before clearing his throat. Mr. Reed, please refrain from. Yes, Your Honor, I said innocently. Refraining now. Liam leaned over and whispered. You're enjoying this too much, buddy. I whispered back. This is my Super Bowl. The next evidence drop hit harder. Photos from Mrs. Harper's album. Melissa, pen in hand. Harold looking frail beside her. Brandon lurking in the background. Dana narrated each image like a museum guide of fraud. Here we have the defendant staging a false signing while the witness, Mrs. Harper, was present and later threatened into silence. Melissa slammed her hands on the table. She's lying. Dana smiled sweetly. Then she must have lied to the recording device, too, because she captured your call, offering her medical assistance for cooperation. At that, Brandon groaned, running a hand down his face. I couldn't resist. I leaned toward Liam. You think he's wishing he'd taken that bartending job now? Pratt tried to regain control. Your Honor, my clients are victims of manipulation. By who? The judge asked flatly. He hesitated. By Mr. Reed. The judge blinked slowly. So the man who provided the real evidence manipulated the ones who forged a will and bribed an attorney? Pratt stammered. In a manner of speaking. Try speaking better, the judge said dryly. The courtroom laughed. The sound of justice, sweet and sarcastic. Dana wasn't done. She pulled out Harold's handwritten letter, the one Liam had kept locked in the vault. This, Your Honor, is Harold Stein's final statement, notarized and witnessed independently. She began to read. If Julian stands before this court, he already carries more honesty than the rest of them combined. Melissa's face drained of color. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into the carpet. The judge leaned back, exhaled slowly, and muttered, "This isn't civil. This is criminal." Boom. Mic drop, if microphones were allowed in court. Melissa's voice cracked. "You don't understand. He used me. He tricked me into thinking." I interrupted, calm as ever. "Into thinking what? That you could steal everything and still come out as the victim? You didn't need help with that. You've always been a natural." Her eyes blazed. "You ruined me." "Correction," I said. "You did. I just brought the mirror." The judge banged the gavel. "Enough. Mrs. Turner, control yourself or I'll have you removed." She collapsed into her chair. Tears starting to form. Not remorseful tears, performative ones. The kind that say, "Please sympathize with my downfall." Brandon looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. When the judge called for recess, he stood and muttered to her, "We're screwed." She hissed back, "Not if I spin it right." I smiled as I passed them. "Good luck with that. Maybe Netflix will pick it up." Outside the courtroom, the hallway was chaos. Cameras flashing, microphones everywhere, reporters shouting questions. One asked, "Mr. Reed, how do you feel after hearing those tapes in court?" I grinned. Like honesty just got a sequel. Back inside, round 2 started after lunch. Dana called Mrs. Harper to the stand. The woman walked in wearing her Sunday best and the confidence of a saint who knows she's about to deliver divine punishment. "Mrs. Harper," Dana began. "Do you recognize the people in this photo?" "Of course," she said proudly. "That's Harold. That's Melissa. And that's the other one. What's his name again?" "Brandon Turner," Dana replied. "Right, Brandon. I remember him because he smelled like cheap cologne and bad credit." The courtroom exploded with laughter. The judge coughed into his hand to hide a smile. Melissa's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, relevance?" The judge waved him off. "Overruled. The witness can continue." "And please, Mrs. Harper, proceed carefully, but honestly." "I always do," she said sweetly. "Unlike some people." Her testimony sealed it. Every detail matched the photos, the recordings, everything. By the time she stepped down, you could see the jury wasn't just convinced, they were offended on my behalf. When closing arguments rolled around, Dana didn't need theatrics. "This isn't about divorce," she said. "It's about deception, about people who thought wealth made them untouchable and a man who refused to let truth stay buried." Then she turned toward me and nodded once. "Thank you, Mr. Reed." The judge's final words before adjourning for the verdict were simple but heavy. "If half of what we've seen today doesn't shock you, then you've stopped paying attention." As the gavel came down, Melissa's composure shattered completely. She shouted something incoherent, half anger, half panic. The bailiff had to step forward, not to restrain her, but to protect the dignity of the meltdown. Brandon just sat there, silent, face in his hands. For once, he understood what rock bottom sounded like, and it came in Dolby Surround. When the session ended, I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and looked over at her. She met my eyes with pure hatred, and I gave her the calmest smile I've ever managed in my life. "That," I said softly, "was for Harold." And I walked out, leaving the circus behind. Verdict: guilty. Fraud, forgery, obstruction, the trifecta of poetic justice. The courtroom went silent, then erupted into whispers, cameras clicking like applause. Melissa sat frozen, mascara running an Olympic marathon down her cheeks. Brandon just stared at the floor like maybe it would open up and swallow him. Mercifully, it didn't. The judge looked at me and said, "Mr. Reed, your uncle would be proud." I nodded, smiling just enough to be polite. Inside, though, it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 7 years. All assets restored, patents reverted, the house, mine again. Reporters shouted questions as I walked out, but I just kept moving. For once, I didn't need to explain anything. The truth had done all the talking for me. Melissa whispered as I passed, "You won." I leaned close and said, "No. We did. You taught me how." Then I left her there in pearls, shame, and silence. 1 year later, peace didn't come like a sunrise. It came like a refund. Quiet, satisfying, and way overdue. I'd opened the Reed Institute for Legal Integrity downtown, a fancy way of saying, a place where people learn not to become their own scandals. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now teaching others how not to do exactly what Melissa did, underestimate patience, misplace honesty, and overestimate their own cleverness. Reporters still tried to frame me as the man who turned revenge into philanthropy. I preferred my version, the guy who got tired of stupid people winning. When one journalist asked if I did it for revenge, I laughed. "No," I told her. Revenge yells. Justice hums while sipping coffee. The lake house eventually became mine again. I didn't sell it. I kept it like a trophy and a warning label in one. Sometimes I drive out there, sit by the dock with a beer, and listen to the quiet. The same water that once echoed her laughter now mirrored peace instead of pretense. Do I forgive her? Maybe. Do I miss her? Only when my Wi-Fi lags. That's how I know hell is real. Brandon took a plea deal. Melissa? She got community service and a lifetime subscription to Regret. I heard she tried to start another business under a new name. Didn't work. Turns out the internet has a long memory. As for me, I'm doing just fine. Better, actually. My mornings are quiet, my coffee stays hot, and my name finally means something good again. People greet me with respect instead of pity. Even the barista down the street writes Mr. Reed on my cup now. Sometimes when I'm locking up the office at night, I catch myself laughing softly. Not the bitter laugh I used to carry like armor, but a lighter one. The kind that says, "You made it out." Last week, I drove back to the lake house again. Same dock, same view, different man. I tossed a coin into the water. Not for luck, just to remind myself that I paid my dues and got change back. As it sank, I said, "That's for Harold." The wind was calm, the ripples faded, and for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned.